The VA just made a change and it's exposing bad nexus letters. Everyone is talking about the May 1st M21-1 changes, but many are focused on the negativity of the quote, but for causation language, and not really discussing the medical evidence correctly and how it impacts you and how you may be seeing a change within your cases or cases that you've planned to file in the future. If you don't understand this, you're likely to make a critical error for your claim. Now, I'm going to go through these 5 components of the change one by one. I'm going to point out where others are missing key information that will hold back your claims, and I'll also give you some helpful tips for each if they apply. One thing I want to mention up front is that none of these changes impact how we at MRPY complete documents, because we've been writing to this standard from the very beginning. After helping more than 25,000 veterans, it's nice to see everyone else catching up. And it's important to create a good foundation of medical evidence that will stand the test of time. It reduces the chances that your rating will be reduced or taken away. And yes, we have seen quite a bit of that. I feel we're going to be seeing a lot more denials coming up because of this. The first change is about obesity. The bottom line up front with obesity is that obesity opinions need stronger medical structure. The VA reaffirmed that obesity itself is not directly service connectable, and it cannot serve as an in-service event because it develops over time. But obesity can still be used as an intermediate step between a service-connected condition and another claimed disability. The key medical evidence piece is obesity as an intermediate step should explain a few key pieces. Why the service-connected condition caused meaningful weight gain or why it caused obesity, why obesity materially contributed to the claimed condition, why the claimed condition likely would not have occurred or would have been less severe but for that obesity. So that's a lot. Here's a case example, and it's a little easier to understand. So a weak version, what we would see often, is PTSD caused weight gain, which caused sleep apnea. The stronger version, the one that we typically use, is something along the lines of PTSD symptoms and medication effects would reduce sleep quality, it increased appetite and metabolic risk, it reduced activity, and it contributed to the obesity. The obesity increased upper airway collapsibility and was a substantial factor in the sleep apnea development. The second change I want to talk about is related to C&P exams. The bottom line up front for this one is that lay statements matter more than people think. The VA clarified that exams are not automatic. The VA must determine whether the existing medical evidence is enough to decide the claim. If the evidence is adequate, the VA should not routinely request an exam. Now, this is not news. This has been the case. Have they been following it? I don't know. For secondary claims, the veteran needs a current disability or symptoms, plus a service-connected primary disability, and some credible indication of association, i.e. the nexus. And again, not news. It's been like this. Here's the critical piece. A generalized statement like, my hypertension is secondary to my back condition, may not be enough. But a specific lay statement describing symptoms, medication effects, the interference of treatment into your daily life, or a plausible relationship may be enough to trigger that exam. So if you aren't submitting a fully developed claim, there has to be something in the claim in your submission to either decide the case or warrant an exam. And I know that there are some of you out there that know exactly what I'm talking about. You submit a claim and lightning fast, a denial. No exam, no explanation, just flat out denied. That's what this is. The VA is making it clearer that veterans need better developed claims before the VA will develop them or help fully develop them, send them to an exam. Here are some tips on what you should think about when writing your lay statement. These are things that we like to tell veterans when they're struggling with writing down how these things make them feel. So what changed? When it changed, what symptoms appeared, what medications were started, what activities stopped for you, and how the service-connected condition interfered with treatment, or even how the claimed condition worsened over time. Those are some key triggering points that can help jog your memory to document a much more thorough lay statement. The third change is about unclaimed primary conditions. Newsflash, you may get a surprise service connection even if you didn't file for it. Doesn't that sound amazing? I think that's fabulous. Okay, so how is that, you say? All right, so for secondary service connection, the VA must also consider whether the claimed secondary condition is actually caused by an unclaimed primary disability. That may also warrant service connection. Let that sink in for a second. This matters because many veterans file a connection with the wrong theory, or they don't file conditions that may be service connected. You don't know what you don't know, right? So what I take this as, this offers an opportunity for a condition that you did not claim to be considered for service connection. Now, in our letters, we always include all factors that contribute to whatever condition we're arguing. And so even if it's not service connected, that brings it to light to have the VA consider it. So imagine that surprise in the mail on your decision letter. I can hope. The fourth and the change that's getting most of the hype online is related to secondary service connection and the change of critical legal language. So there are two parts with this, and I'm seeing so many people focusing only on the first part. So I'm going to break them up into two separate pieces. So the first part is the VA now emphasizes that broader but-for causation standard from the Spicer decision 2023. Remember, this is 2023 decision, not even new. See my related video to that, learn more about that specific case, and what this talks about is a secondary disability may qualify if it is the result of or would not have occurred but for the service-connected disability. The critical second part of that M21-1 update on May 1st that has me excited is for aggravation. The permanent worsening is not required, and the VA will no longer consider natural progression when deciding aggravation of a non-service connected disability by a service-connected disability. So wait, let's say that again so y'all hear it. Permanent worsening is no longer required, and the VA will no longer consider natural progression against your claim. This is huge in my world. You will hear me on old videos and all over the years saying how difficult some cases are because they naturally worsen. Those conditions naturally worsen. So how do we help the veteran, and how does the veteran prove that they were worsened more significantly due to service from that service-connected condition? It's no longer required. I think that's amazing for some veterans. It's going to open a lot of doors. This does not make cases completely easier. So remember, not everything can get through. It doesn't make everything easier. Medical opinions must include clear rationale, be based on accurate facts, and come from someone competent to make that connection. That is favorable for veterans, but it also creates documentation problems for others, those who are looking to cut corners. The VA still requires a baseline level of severity for aggravation. If no baseline can be established after the duty to assist development, then the aggravation theory must be denied. The VA also says not to assume a 0% baseline. The fifth and last change is related to the examiner report's requirements. So, for aggravation opinions, the examiner must separately address a few things. Current severity, whether the increased severity would not have occurred but for the service-connected disability, whether the condition would have been less severe but for the service-connected disability, and medical reasoning in support of the opinion. This is huge for nexus letters. A basic nexus letter with more likely than not aggravated by opinion without anything else is no longer enough. That sounds simple, but here's what that actually means medically. So what we've seen is a huge increase in nexus letters that say, at least as likely as not, due to service, and then what? Nothing else. Buckus, nothing. No mechanism, no explanation, no medical reasoning tying the two together. We see that with AI derived nexus letters. We see that with very poor copy and paste and templated. So under this update, those are easier for the VA to reject because now it's more clearly defined that a conclusion without a rationale is not probative. Let me show you what that looks like in a real case. So we see denials all the time for sleep apnea secondary to PTSD. It's probably one of the most denied cases. And you'll see where the provider states the connection but doesn't explain. They won't explain how the chronic stress impacts sleep architecture. They won't explain how weight gain can act as an intermediate factor or how those factors contribute to airway obstruction. Medically speaking, that connection can make sense, but not if it's not explained. That step by step, that this leads to this and causes that, and this is how it works. The VA treats it like it doesn't exist, and that's the shift. You have stronger enforcement of what should have been there the whole time. Should have been there the whole time. And here's why this matters right now. This change is happening at the same time that we're seeing more templated based and AI generated nexus letters than ever before. It just exploded out of nowhere. It's amazing. Which means veterans are supporting and submitting opinions that look complete, but they don't medically hold up. So if you're hearing people panic about this update, don't go down that road yourself. Just understand. This standard didn't change, at least for us. It didn't change. The tolerance for weak medical reasoning did. And if your nexus letter clearly explains the why behind your condition, you're still in a very strong position and you don't have anything to worry about. The first step is always a comprehensive medical evidence assessment to understand what evidence you have, what gaps you may have, and what evidence you might need to get in order to submit a strong claim. For us at MRPY, we see what you have already. We determine what is missing and communicate that with you so you understand it also. As always, if you need help, we're here. Don't panic. Just support your evidence stronger.